Hello and welcome back to the Sports Booth. Today, a special video. I thought, the Six Nations just wrapped up, so why not think about what big tournament's coming next, which is the Rugby Championship, and go, what would a Six Nations team go up against a Rugby Championship team look like? Now, obviously, we have the British and Irish Lions, so, it would be a similar team with the French chucked in, and they normally only tour one country, and there's been talk of like an Anzac XV with New Zealand and Australia, but what if we actually went the whole way and went, you know what, a Six Nations team versus a Rugby Championship team, to see what the best hemisphere is, I should say, between the North and the South. So with this, I've kind of taken a little bit of, obviously, the Six Nations form from the teams. I've also taken into account previous form and just kind of tried to make the best 23 for Six Nations, throughout. And the Rugby Championship, most of the form is coming off the Rugby World Cup and then kind of building on what I already know and expect from the players that I've selected. There are a couple of rules just to make this fair. At least every team needs two players. So for the Six Nations, that'll mean at least two players from each nation. Same in the Rugby Championship, which doesn't cause too many issues. It might just change the fact that, yes, you wouldn't have this player in there, but I just think for the fact that we want to try and select from, these two competitions, I didn't want it just to be a Irish and French dominated team and then a New Zealand and South Africa dominated team. So there are players that I've selected where it may not be the best choice, but I'm trying to build the best team with the team throughout the whole competition. I don't want it just to be individual teams. Starting off, we're going to start with the Six Nations team. Now, saying all of that, how I want it all to be the best teams, the Six Nations team have a front row of Andrew Porter, Dan Sheehan, and Tad Furlong. All Irish. The Irish front pack has dominated. Yes, there can be argument with the French front row, and they may slip onto the bench. But I just think that those three are the best three. Dan Sheehan is just about the easiest pick of this lot. Like, he is actually so far out in front, in my opinion, of any other hooker in the Six Nations that it was an easy pick. In the locking partnership, I've gone with Daffyd Jenkins, and I'm probably butchering it. It might be David, I don't know. Daffyd Jenkins, the Welsh captain, and I do apologise if I'm butchering that, but he's in there along with Tad Burney, again another Irishman, but Tad Burney's a sensational lock, one of the best in the world, and then I think Jenkins has to go in there with, when we're only able to select two Welshmen, or we have to select two Welshmen, I think he's one of the ones that actually put his hand up in this tournament. In the back row, we go Caelan Doris, Kela Lamato, and Gregor Aldred. Lamato is, the Italian captain, and again, is a great player, great number 7. I think in a better team would actually look even better than he already looks. And then people underestimate how good Gregor Aldred was for the French in the Six Nations. He was so fantastic in every game he played in, and is up there with one of the best 8s in the world. So he wasn't far from my team, and this was an easy decision for me. Getting into the back line now, I know this might be a controversial pick, but I've gone Antoine Dupont. I know he didn't play in the Six Nations. I know he's playing sevens at the moment, but he's the best 9 in the world, in my opinion. And I think to not select him would just be a disservice to this experiment. So Dupont's in. I've gone Finn Russell at 10 to make our half pairing. I think that's the logical half pairing. Yeah, look, Finn Russell has his moments. Is he, he's in Maverick, as they say. Is he all that he's built up to be? I think in a team like this, he'd be the superstar that we need. The midfield, I've gone with Bundy Arki and Gael Fakau. I think those two pretty much select themselves. I think Fakau is just one of the best defensive centres in the world, and Bundy Arki's form over the past 2 years has been exceptional. Back three was hard. I think two of them pretty much selected themselves. Hugo Keenan at the back, I think I just put him over Ramos because I think when he's in that team, he just makes Ireland better. Damien Penaud, you can't not select him for the form he's been in for the past couple of years. Then the other wing was open. I like what James Lowe did a lot in the Six Nations, and I think he was very good. I've gone Duhan van der Merwe. Look, Darcy Graham's there. There's a lot of other good wingers, Rio Dyer, that I could have selected. I just think when you've got a player like that who, when he's on, is just one of the best wingers in the world. It's hard to go by. On the bench, I've gone for the reserve hooker. I was looking at Jamie George. I was looking at some other options, but I've gone George Turner from Scotland. I think flew under the radar. The reserves prop, Uni Antonio, is easy selection again. Main reason why the French scrum is so good is because of him. And the other prop, I've gone Pierre Showman, because I think he, again, in the Six Nations, took us another step up in level. Lock reserve, I've gone Mato Itoje. I think form probably hasn't been at the peak of where he has been at previously, and I think that speaks to how good he was previously. But I think he still gets in the team, and that gives me one of the English ones. For 20, I've gone Ben Earl to take out the second English one. I really, after his form in the Six Nations, he deserved to be in the starting team. And you could easily put him in that starting team, move some things around. But I just think that Aldred is just that much better in the past 12, 24 months. And Earl had a fantastic Six Nations, but it wasn't quite enough. But I think he needs to be in the team. I've gone controversial here. Again, I've decided to select an extra forward on the bench. So I've gone Tommy Riffel, the Welsh number 7. If you didn't watch him in the Six Nations, he was fantastic. He was up there with Jenkins for the two best Welshmen. In a tough tournament for them. And so I've got 2 spots left and I need at least one Italian. I've gone Stephen Vardy as the reserve halfback. I love Alex Mitchell. I think he should be in this team and was one of the ones I was tossing up. I just think, obviously due to injury, he missed a lot of the Six Nations. I think Stephen Vardy put his hand up pretty well. But I've also selected another Italian in Tommaso Minocello. I'm hoping I'm not butchering that. I probably am. I think his ability, he played 12 in one game for the Italians and then played on the wing. His ability to do both of that gives us a lot of opportunity to play him in there. I think he put his hand up over the Six Nations. And again, coming off the back, I don't believe he was in the World Cup squad. So coming off the back of that, I just thought, for a guy not in the World Cup squad to be doing that was quite incredible. So that is my Six Nations squad. And now let's quickly run through the Rugby Championship squad. I'll be honest, I have selected 3 Australians, which I think you could justify over the past 24 months is already too many. But I think the 3 I've selected deserve their selections. I think I've got even selections between New Zealand and South Africa, which I think is deserved. And I've got 4 Argentinians. And all of them, I believe, deserve selection. So I'll run through this team. Now, yes, players are going to get left out. Peter Steph-Toy gets left out here. Sia Kolisi gets left out here. There will be players like that get left out, and I understand that you could easily put one over the other. But just let me explain, and then go and bash me in the comments, all right? Number 1, Angus Bell. Best Australian prop front rower for a long, long time. Is fantastic. Deserves to be in this team. 2, I've got Malcolm Marx. I know Bongi Mbappe was fantastic throughout the World Cup. Even Dean Fury was really good. But Marx is just on another level when he's on this team, and he was injured during the World Cup. 3, I've gone Tyrell Lomax. To me, he's the best New Zealand prop and deserves to be in this team. 4 and 5, this is the combo I'm most excited about. Broder Retallick and Eben Etzebeth. Those 2 locks, that sends shivers down team's spine hearing those 2 names in the same squad. 6 is our second Australian, Rob Valentini. He was Australian Player of the Year last year, and deservedly so, was really, really good for them, and I think would do a very good job in this team. 7, Pablo Matera. Again, didn't have the injured through the middle of the World Cup, but just based on who he is and what he can do, has to be in this team. 8, Artie Savia. 9, I've gone Aaron Smith. 10, I've gone Andre Pollard. Now, again, you could go Richie Mo'unga, you could go Dave McKenzie, but I think Andre Pollard just leads this team around the park better than anyone else, and it showed in the Rugby World Cup. Won South Africa the Rugby World Cup, so I think has to be in this team. Into the midfield, I've gone Geordie Barrett and Jesse Kriel. I really wanted to go Lacano Arm, but I just think Jesse Kriel's form in the Rugby World Cup is underestimated. Like, he was so fantastic, and it doesn't get talked about enough, I think. In the back 3, I've gone Cheslin Crowby on one wing, I've gone Will Jordan on the other wing, and I've gone Emiliano Boffelli at the fullback position. But let's go through the bench. I've gone Julian Montoya, reserve hooker. I think when I look at the New Zealand hookers, Cody Taylor started to get into form at the end of the Rugby World Cup, but to me, just not in the form that Montoya was in. Then I've gone Franz Malherbe and Oxenish. I think those 2 props are 2 of the best props in the world. And Oxenish, what he did coming off the bench for the South Africans during the Rugby World Cup, has to be in this team. My last Australian, I've gone with a reserve lock in Will Skelton. I think, yes, not in the greatest form for Australia, but his form in club rugby and his just ability and thinking about those free locks and how they can interchange in the size of them and just what they would do to other teams, that scares the living hell out of me. Reserve flanker, I've gone Juan Martin Gonzalez. Yes, a little bit controversial, but I just think he deserves to be in this team, and not enough people know who he is and how good of a player he is. He was so good for them in the Rugby World Cup, so good for them in the Rugby Championship last year, is killing it in club rugby again. Just a fantastic player. Reserve halfback, Faf de Klerk, easy one for me. I just feel like he's a level above everyone else, and in that same bracket as Aaron Smith, you can change those interchangeably, and I wouldn't mind at all. Last two positions I've selected based on ability to move around, and I've gone Beauden Barrett and Rieko Ioane. Rieko can cover 13 and wing. Beauden Barrett, obviously fullback and first five. Gives us a great bench to be able to move players around. So that is my two, my Six Nations and my the Rugby Championship team. I would love to know who you think would win in a match like this. It would be an epic battle, one of the best games you could see. I would love for World Rugby, I know the calendar's already heavy, but to think about something like this as an expedition match, I think it would get fans into bums into seats. It would be fantastic to see all of these players mixing in a Barbarians team style atmosphere. You have a bit of fun, ball gets thrown around. But yeah, let me know who you think's going to win. Let me know who I missed out, who should have been in the team, who you would rather see, all of that good stuff. And make sure, as always, to like and subscribe if you enjoy these videos. For now, I've been Luke. This has been The Sports Booth. We will talk later. Goodbye.